human rights and religious freedom continue to be suppressed in communist China as the trial of Catholic dissident and free speech activist Jimmy Lai continues. Meanwhile, here in the United States, at least 7 pro-life activists have been sentenced to federal prison for being accused of blocking the entrance to an abortion clinic in D.C. back in 2020. Joining me to discuss this and much more, U.S. Congressman from New Jersey, co-chair of the House Pro-Life Caucus, Chris Smith. Congressman,
thank you
for being here. Pleasure to see you. It's been a while. Before we dive in, there was a major event on Capitol Hill. We could tell from all the traffic trying to get here. President Trump was on the Hill. He met with Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate, or Republicans in the House and Senate, rather. Your reaction to this visit? I was stunned that Romney and Mitch McConnell ended up attending that meeting.
Well, I think the good news is we are uniting as a party, as a people. I mean, things were far better off when Trump was president. Biden's administration has been an unmitigated disaster, both economically and on the moral issues. I've never seen somebody who is so obsessed with promoting abortion at home and abroad. He is the abortion president, and there's no doubt about it. He links it to every single policy, including forcing the Veterans Administration to provide venues for abortions in pro-life states like Texas and other states where they've passed good, solid right-to-life legislation. So I think there's a recognition that we need real leadership on the world stage as well as domestically, and we don't have it now.
Okay, I want to talk about this ongoing trial, and we've been covering this for a long time, of Catholic activist Jimmy Lai, a freedom fighter in his country, a media magnate who now has been incarcerated for many years. The prosecution rested this week. The trial will resume in July. Now, Lai is in Hong Kong. He's facing charges of violating a Chinese national security law. Trial is nearing the 100-day mark. And we should mention, Jimmy Lai is in very poor health. He's been diagnosed with high blood pressure during his incarceration. He has pleaded not guilty to 2 charges of conspiring to collude with foreign forces and 1 count of conspiring to publish seditious material. Now, if he is found guilty, he could face life in prison.
That's right.
Congressman Smith, you and others have lobbied the Secretary of State here in the United States to advocate for Jimmy Lai. Have you heard any news about that request? Where is the United States on this man's freedom?
When it comes to human rights in China, unfortunately, the Biden administration and Secretary of State Blinken say almost nothing. You know, they'll mention it as a passing thought rather than as a central component of our foreign policy vis-a-vis the Chinese Communist Party. Xi Jinping is committing genocide against the Uyghurs, against the Tibetan Buddhists. He is crushing Christians, including Catholics, throughout China. Yeah. And Jimmy Lai, and I had a hearing, frankly, that had his son, Sebastian, come and testify, and he was brilliant, calling for the release of his father and calling on the world, including the United States and UK, because he's
where's the UK? He's a UK citizen.
He's a UK citizen.
Where are they on?
And I even wrote a letter to the Prime Minister saying, advocate on behalf of Jimmy Lai. He's a human rights advocate with very few equals in the world. A group of us have put his name forward for the Nobel Peace Prize, believing that if anybody should get it, somebody who has spoken truth to power through his media as well as through his voice
and his example.
He could have fled Hong Kong.
Right.
He had the wherewithal. He stayed there because he wants a free and democratic Hong Kong, not another manifestation of Xi Jinping's dictatorship.
Well,
so our administration has to do far more. Maybe they've conveyed something in private. There needs to be a daily outreach to the Chinese Communist Party on behalf of dissidents like the great Jimmy Lai.
He's 76 years old.
Yes.
I mean, it looks like he's going to face life in prison. Can he even get a fair trial?
No.
I mean, has the prosecution discovered anything of merit here?
No.
Or is this just the kangaroo court that we imagined?
In China, throughout, mainland China, and now in Hong Kong, if you're accused, you're guilty. That's just the way the Chinese Communist Party does it.
Yeah.
It's a matter of how long are you going to spend time in prison, which is why there needs to be economic sanctions. I've introduced a bill that would take away most favored nation status. It's called PNTR now, permanent, because Clinton, and I just wrote a piece that the Wall Street Journal published just a few weeks ago.
Ask you about it,
that when we delinked human rights from trade, we said do whatever you want with your dissidents, with your religious believers.
You particularly
Yeah.
said, I'll jump ahead here. At the end of May, when the Hong Kong High Court handed down that landmark judgment of those 14 prominent pro-democracy politicians, they charged them with conspiracy to commit subversion. And as you say, once you're charged, you're guilty in China.
Guilty.
But you say, and I'm going to find it here, in the Wall Street Journal piece, that in 1994, Bill Clinton lost China.
That's right.
When he decoupled most favored nation status from human rights. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, there was no doubt after Tiananmen Square, there was a understanding at long last, because I've been working on human rights since I got elected in 1981. And there was an understanding that this dictatorship is a menace, obviously, to its own people, but also to the world. As they grow and they get a military power and the ability to project that power, they will be a menace in the region and someday to the world. In 1994, Bill Clinton, May 26, 1994 to be exact, delinked trade from human rights. And when he did that, he gave them the green light to destroy, punish, murder, because they execute so many of their prisoners. They use torture with impunity. They had the one-child per couple policy with forced abortion. And when it comes to faith, unless you comport with the Chinese Communist Party's belief about faith, which means Xi Jinping tells you no faith.
Xi Jinping is God.
You're crushed, right? He delinked it, and that's when we lost China. And, there were a lot of us who were outraged. I did a press conference. C-SPAN carried it on May 26, 1994. I couldn't believe it because I really thought, at least on this one, Clinton is getting it right. I didn't agree with his other policies. Here he was getting it right because previously he had accused George Herbert Walker Bush, the president, of siding with tyrants, including China. And then he turns around, then he sides with them like nobody else ever has.
Wow, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
And Jimmy Lai, just to put a bow around Jimmy's particular case, this is a Catholic convert, a media mogul. I mean, he was really, it's hard for people to understand, I think, outside of Hong Kong. He owned the biggest daily newspaper and media concerns in the country, in Hong Kong, and which really was a force. They needed to shut that down because he was reporting on the pro-democracy efforts, and his Catholic faith became a real force for his activism and his belief that people should be free, both with their mouths and with their minds and souls and
You
hearts.
just said that better than I could ever say, because that's exactly what he did.
But summarize for people what he represents to the others who are yearning for freedom there in China.
Well, he is an example of courage, of being willing to be suppressed, and in this case, probably jailed for the rest of his life. He is maltreated. And frankly, if the Western countries, starting with the United States, followed closely by the UK, fail to speak up, we become complicit because we are enabling, because we're providing them a market for their exports. Without their exporting, they don't survive economically. And that's why my new bill says we'll take away that ability unless they ameliorate their human rights abuses.
You think you might be able to get that through if the Republicans take House, Senate, and Trump returns to the White House?
I think there's a very good probability we can. Right now, the Biden administration is dead set against it. So that's, even if we pass it House and Senate, he would veto it.
Okay. You recently, and I love this story, you recently proposed a bipartisan bill to rename Hong Kong Economic Trade, the office, the street that it resides on, Jimmy Lai Way.
Exactly.
Have you heard any response from the Chinese government?
No, they don't like it, obviously.
I'll bet.
They don't like it at all. And we are pushing hard to get that passed. We've done things like that before, and I think it raises the question, okay, every day when you're going into your office, Chinese diplomat / Communist Party leader, you have to see Jimmy Lai's name.
Well, the Chinese communists want us to forget and erase people like Jimmy Lai from our memory.
Exactly.
It's very important that we fight that and continue to broadcast the truth. And that's certainly what this place was founded for. So we will continue to do so.
And Raymond, just let me say very quickly, I got a bill passed a full year ago to go after the heinous practice of forced organ harvesting.
Awful.
Where they kill tens of thousands of average age 28-year-olds to sell their organs. They get 2 or 3 organs per person. It's right out of the playbook of Joseph Mengele from the Nazi Germany era. Just total, and I had 3 hearings on it. I heard from one doctor who actually did the horrific procedure, who was mea culpa, remorseful.
Right.
But it's a situation where, and I can't get it out of the Senate. It's sitting in the Senate right now for over a year, and it would sanction those who do it. It would hold criminally liable those people who knowingly go and procure those organs.
And this is the problem, Congressman Smith, and you've once again targeted it. When a country can't condemn something as outrageous as organ harvesting of another people, it's all because of financial motive and wanting to keep those trade dollars coming from China. That is blood money. That's blood money and slave labor. So all these people talking about slavery and they're worried about this and ripping down statues. This is a slave regime happening today.
Right now.
And a maiming of people on a scale of which we really don't see anywhere else in the world but China. It's an outrage. I want to move on and talk about the Vatican-Chinese agreement, this secret agreement. Is this part of the reason why one never hears from the Vatican about Jimmy Lai's case, or frankly, any of the cases of the other people who are, many of them Catholic, who are yearning for freedom and caught up in this Kafka-esque trial system?
Well, Cardinal Zen wrote a brilliant op-ed for the New York Times, and he called out the Vatican to give over powers to Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party to select bishops, to control the church. Yes, the Vatican gets veto power, but when have they exercised that? When a name is put forward? That kind of coordination, complicity, call it whatever you want, accommodation with an anti-God dictatorship is outrageous. And you're right. Where is the Vatican's voice when it comes to Jimmy Lai and all these other great human rights leaders?
You spoke to Paroline, the Vatican Secretary of State,
before
that deal was consummated. What did he tell you?
Well, they took in what I gave them. I was and still am the Chinese China Commission chairman, a bicameral commission here in Washington, and said, you're undermining the underground Catholic Church, which is made up of the most amazing men and women. I met with Bishop Xu of Baoding Province in the 1990s. He had spent 30 years in prison as part of the underground church. I never met someone with such clear-eyed, even love for his opponent, who tortured him and kept him in prison all those years. He said he prays for his enemies.
I know, they've abandoned all those people.
And they've abandoned the underground church. I'm amazed at it, and it's been a unmitigated disaster.
No, it's a heartbreak, and it should be a heartbreak to everybody watching the program.
Yes.
When you go into church, we have the luxury of reading the apostolic words that were passed down to us and protected, inspired words of God. These poor people are reading this defiled and debased version of the gospel where Xi Jinping and communist doctrine is woven into the teachings of Jesus.
And you know what they call that? Synodization.
Right.
It's got a name, and I've had hearings on it, where they, not just for the Catholics, but all faiths, they've rewritten the Bible.
Perversion of faith.
And they take out certain aspects of it, and certain passages, in order to promote Xi Jinping's ideology.
Congressman Smith, before we run out of time, this month marks the second anniversary of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
I want to get your reaction to the 7 pro-life activists who have been sentenced to federal prison. They've all been convicted of blocking the door of an abortion clinic in D.C. in 2020. The sentences range from 21 to 57 months. Lauren Handy, this poor woman, is facing nearly 5 years in the federal pen. Now, the Justice Department says these demonstrators violently blocked the entrance to this clinic. The Thomas More Law Center, representing Mrs. Handy, says the protests were peaceful. What is your take on the severity, the length of these sentences, particularly when compared to BLM protesters, the pro-Palestinian riots we've been seeing? Your take on all of this?
It is absolutely persecution based on viewpoint.
Why?
Because these people are pro-life. The administration, the Biden administration, is, again, the most pro-abortion administration ever that we've had. And this is another way of saying to Planned Parenthood and the other abortion clinics, if anybody is out there doing nonviolent civil disobedience, a sit-in, for example, we'll throw the book at it. I led the effort back in 1993 against Chuck Schumer. He was then a House member. He wrote the FACE Act, Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. And they lied about what it would do. And here was the thing. it said force or threat of force, and that's basic language from civil rights. But then they added mere physical obstruction. So the staple of the civil rights movement was sit-ins, physical obstruction in front of a door, and that goes for labor unions. And when they go to that point and they're picketing, the only ones who get criminalized the way we are as pro-lifers under FACE are all these wonderful, in many cases, sidewalk counselors.
But FACE covers churches and crisis pregnancy centers, don't they?
That was added. Yeah, it's not being implemented by this administration, but that was added because we did put up such a fight.
Right.
They said, okay, we'll apply it to churches. And I said, don't apply it anywhere.
Right.
Because it's a wrongful law.
Well, they don't enforce that.
And they don't enforce it.
I mean, they've got crisis pregnancy centers being bombed.
Bombed and defaced, and where's the prosecutions there? And that is violence.
Very slow. They're coming along.
And I wrote a letter to the top people in the administration about two of the women who have very severe health problems who are not getting the attention. And they wrote back and said, well, where's your Privacy Act form to request this? I mean, it's just like, this is a matter of public policy being carried out privately against these people who are suffering so immensely. Civil disobedience, as long as it's nonviolent, has been a staple of reform in this country. The FACE Act, and here's another thing that nobody knows about with the FACE Act. Yeah. If you get fined, where does the money go? It doesn't go to the U.S. Treasury. It goes to the abortion clinic.
Really?
So they go after your 401k and all of your savings, your house, because they can really go after you with ruinous lawsuits and ruinous fines. It's going to these people who every day decapitate, dismember, and chemically poison an unborn baby.
I wonder if it works the other way around. So if you block access to a church or lob the head off of the Virgin Mary in the front yard, do those monies revert to the church? No. The fine?
They don't enforce. It's selective prosecution, but it shouldn't even be a prosecution. The FACE law is one of the worst laws I have ever seen. I've been in Congress 44 years. When it and even when the bankruptcy bill came up, there was a big push by Schumer to make sure, and we beat him, to make sure that nobody could ever get out from under who has been accused and convicted of a FACE violation.
Congressman, the U.S. Supreme Court just ruled today unanimously to reject the efforts to restrict access to the abortion pill mifepristone. Now, the ruling focused not really on the merits, it focused on who had standing. In this case, it was pro-life doctors and activists, and the court said they didn't have the standing. Mifepristone, as you know, is the most common form of terminating pregnancies today and of abortion. This really didn't touch on the merits, though. Do you think they're going to challenge this again?
Yes, I do. There's already 3 states looking to challenge it, Missouri, Idaho, and Kansas. And there the focus would be on the women who have been harmed. The FDA acknowledges that 1 out of every 25 women who take this abortion pill that literally starves her baby to death. I ask people during debate, do you know how the abortion pill works? It prevents nutrition from getting to the unborn child, and he or she then die by starvation. That's how it works. And this, so they're already now moving. I think the Alliance Defending Freedom did a magnificent job defending on behalf of the physicians, and it made it through all the courts. And we thought, standing? You're going to, on that technicality, where the FDA had really circumvented their own process to get this to market, and that started with Bill Clinton as well. He sent his FDA commissioner when he got elected to go and bring that terrible killing pill to the United States.
And it hasn't gotten nearly enough press coverage. But just this summer, the Biden administration has opened up that abortion pill to every pharmacy in the United States. And you have major chains now carrying it who did not before. Walgreens and Target in select markets, New York and in California, and then they're rolling it out to other states. Final question, what impact will that have on, the pro-life movement in years past would pick it outside of abortoirs. You can't pick it outside of every CVS.
Yes, right. It has to be reversed. It can be reversed. This administration, again, is looking for every way imaginable, domestically or internationally, to kill unborn children. I've never seen such an obsession with death as I do with this administration. I find it mind-boggling, and to now empower the CVS's and Walgreens and all the others to just handing this out. And there's already numerous stories of how deleterious this is to a woman's psychological health.
Yeah.
To see the baby that those pills have just starved to death. So again, this obsession with killing our own children. You know, birth is the event that happens to all of us. It's not the beginning of life. And, you know, ultrasound has shattered the myth about the life of an unborn child. It's an amazing, miraculous life of growth and development, sucking their thumbs while still in utero. And now we're giving pills that will cause that child to starve to death.
Congressman Chris Smith, we thank you for
Violence.
coming in, and we will check in with you in the days ahead.
Thank you, Raymond.
Thank you for being here.
I appreciate it so much.